videos will take some time as well, so I want to go through those. Anyway, good afternoon, good morning to many, and welcome to another one of the FNNBOA webinars. So today, I want to focus on teleinspections. And as you can see from the title, we call this the future. And it's amazing how COVID has pushed teleinspections in the forefront. We originally got into teleinspections back in 2015. We and that's the time of when Bud was around, and we saw an opportunity to try to figure out how to do inspections, especially in the remote areas of Canada, and where a lot of the communities are having difficulties getting access to inspectors. So we, back in 2015, developed a fairly detailed manual on how to do teleinspections. And when COVID broke, it was probably the hottest document that left our website. We kept track of it, and we had substantial downloads. So anyway, so I've had a number of requests to go through teleinspections and how it works, how we identified it, what it is. So basically, what, when, where, why, and how to use teleinspections. So what is teleinspections? Well, it's the use of photographs, using equipment, pictures, videos for inspections of homes, of new construction. You can also use it for renovations as well. What's unique about what we're arguing under teleinspections, it's used under specific requirements where a contractor will provide a visual inspection through either a photographs or through videos, and by doing those, there are specific specifications on how it can be used, where it can be used, and for which communities can use them. So, and these photographs are sent to a teleinspector, and they review it, and then they will provide the appropriate sign-offs. You can see I have TMs. FNNBOA actually owns the trademark teleinspections and teleinspectors, so we actually went as far as to even trademark the names. So basically, teleinspections is an alternative to the visual surveys or inspections. And there's a big debates on, well, photography and videos is not the same as visual surveys. So what we want to do is we're look at both inspections and look at some of the pros and cons. So what we're also arguing is teleinspections is just not inclusive. It can be also include visual surveys as well as photographs. So for example, the inspector may say, okay, I'm going to be there for the pour of the foundation. I'll do video inspections over the next 2 inspections. I want to see the plumbing, and I'll see probably one more aspect in the final. We can do that through video. So it's not either and or, it could be a combination of both. So I want to go into a video, and first of all, I got to figure out how to share.
We're trying to keep every inspector safe.
Sec here.
As well.
Can you see that?
It's the #1 issue that we have. We don't want any inspectors to come down with COVID-19, and we do not want to bring that into anyone's home.
Can you see that, Claude?
Also trying to keep industry moving. Make sure we get
City of Edmonton, yes.
Oh, okay.
Good morning, Mike. Are you ready for the video inspection? Yeah, we are.
We can hear the video, but we can't see anything.
All right, let me 1 second here. Let me just do that. And I got to go. That's why, because I have to hit share. So how do I do share? Share. All right. There we go. Share content. There we go. Share. Now, can you see it?
Yeah.
Right. Here we go. Let's try that again. Share. Share content. and then share. All right.
Oh,
And then out. All right, getting there.
we almost have
Now,
it.
is that it?
Something flashed, but no,
Safe and homeowners as well.
Not yet,
No, we
John.
don't see it. That we have, we don't want any of our inspectors to come down with
All right.
COVID-19, and we do not want to bring that into anyone's home. We're also trying to keep industry.
All right. So you can't see it, eh, Claude?
No, we can't see it on our end. We can hear it, but we can't see it.
Wow.
Yeah, you might have to stop your share and then click on the, well, you
Oh,
have to
stop
click-
by. Oh, yeah, stop by share on. All right. Okay, so let me figure out how to do that.
Removing, make sure we get
All
inspectors.
right. Okay,
and
so
then share the video.
all right. So I will stop sharing. And then I will share content. All right, just a sec here. Oh, oh, oh. All right, now. Okay, share. Now, can you see it?
We got a blank screen right now.
Okay, you're sharing video.
We're trying to keep.
Oh, I see. You got
every
blank.
Inspector safe and homeowner.
Hey, give me one more second here.
As well.
All right.
It's the number one issue.
Clyde, do you want to see if you can try to pull it up? Can you hear me, Claude?
I can hear you. I'm just trying to see if I can pull it up on my end.
Yeah. And it's telling me it wants to kick me out of WebEx here. So that's not a good sign.
That's not a good sign.
You may have to pull up the slide as well. Okay. Are you still there? Am I still there?
You still there? Yeah.
All right. All right. If you can try to pull yours up, do I have to tell you to come on?
Oh, that's not it. Can you see that screen at least?
I'm sort of no. All right. I will continue then.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll try to do you want to, so you can see my front screen now, right? Can you see that slide?
It says City of Edmonton, but then there's a blank black screen.
Yeah, okay. All right. I'm gonna have to sign out and get back in again. Will I lose everybody? No, I won't.
No, you can sign out and get back in.
All right. Let me do that.
I'm watching the video,
Oh, okay.
but not on your screen, on my own screen.
What type of computer are you on, Vince?
Just a desktop.
Okay, so it's playing on your side?
Not from you guys. I just opened up YouTube and opened it up myself.
Okay.
Maybe that's something they others could do.
Yeah, we were having some trouble with it. It seemed to work, and then sometimes it didn't seem to work, and sometimes it was depends on the computer.
I am back. Can you see me now, Claude?
I don't see you.
All right. Just like here, I'm going to share my, oh boy, here we go. Where's my PowerPoint presentation? Just like here, I got to open it. There we go, got to open it. All right, here we go. Share screen. Share. There we
Okay,
go.
it's coming back.
All right. All right. I will not show the video then. All right. There we go. Well, sorry about that. So I had two videos, which will send you the link. And the one video is from the city of Edmonton, and they're doing actually a final inspection. And you have a contractor walking around, and the inspector from the building official from the city of Edmonton is going around instructing him how to show the camera and signing off, putting receptacle testers in to make sure the plugs are working properly. And so it just shows that whole process. The city of Tucson, they actually contacted us originally to on their teleinspection manual, and I was involved in a international building code council, I think it's called, and they gave a presentation on how they're using remote videos. And the one on city of Tucson, they were laying cables, and the inspector is downtown, and the contractor's going around showing how they're laying the cables, putting the tape measure in the trench to show how height and how it's going to be connected. And so they do a sign off. So those were the two uses of the videos I wanted to show. So basically, inspections are either a visual survey or inspections, right? And that's what a lot of us do. The main reason is, the person arrives, it's a physical inspection, they look at the building, they look for compliance, they look at the structure. It's really a qualitative review. One of the challenges of visual surveys is subjective. And in many cases, it's inconsistent between inspectors. One of the complaints that contractors have is, well, if this inspector comes, he wants X, another one says Y. So generally they have the same inspector doing the same, contractor. So at least there's some familiarity with the use of visual surveys. We also know it's labor intensive. You have to drive there. It's costly. It's very time consuming. And in many cases today, people are using photographic records as part of their visual surveys. We know through lots of studies, and especially in terms of capital buildings, the visual inspections are missing some of the key structurals because they are not looking at them properly. There was a couple of studies on visual inspections for bridges, for example, and they found that there was a real gap on visual inspections when they went back. Basically, they're saying that visual inspections, they work, but they have their challenges. So if we move to photographs, imaging techniques, they provide for accurate quantitative information. So each time, so you get a picture, you get a document that's quantitative. It's the image. can include unmanned aerial vehicles, such as drones. I know that we talked about that jokingly of having drones fly over the communities to survey communities to look at some of the houses. I'm not sure if anybody is using drones in First Nations, but they're being used for photographs. There's strict requirements for photographs to be taken, which we're talking about, and it allows for close-ups. It's usually required. So you have an inspector there, allows the person to do, 1 foot or 10 feet. So he can, depending on how the survey inspection being done, you can move the camera back and forth. It's also a cost-effective, it's accurate, and it's a reliable method. Is it time the same? Now, according to the city of Edmonton and a few, it takes about the same amount of time as a regular inspection because you're always telling the person where to walk, how to hold the camera, special shots. But once that improves, they say it also is a bit of a time factor as well. It saves time. So why use teleinspections? Well, one of the challenges that we have is the chiefs and councils are the authority having jurisdiction. And under the authority having jurisdiction, they can, authorize the use of teleinspections. One of the big questions we have is that, CMHC or other government departments may not accept teleinspections. They want the physical surveys. Well, it really is the chief and councils. They're the authority having jurisdictions. And if they choose to use teleinspections, that should be the mode of inspections that is acceptable. The cost saving, especially for conducting inspections in remote communities. So we get many calls from communities from the north and remote saying, we can't get inspectors and we're building houses. So by using teleinspection in those communities, it gives them access. We also know that there's a limited number of inspectors serving Indigenous communities. And I know in BC, there's a huge shortage. So by using teleinspections, this will alleviate some of the inspections where, somebody can do different provinces. So for example, Vince in Prince Albert, he can do teleinspections from Nova Scotia and vice versa, right? So it doesn't have to be by location.
John, can I interrupt for a moment?
Go ahead.
I don't seem to have the recording on my end. You want to check maybe when you logged in, it might have given you back the recording?
Okay, let me check here. I do. Yeah, still recording according to, I got 17 minutes in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. On that note, I just saw, I don't have chat, so you're gonna have to read chat for me there, Claude. Oh, there we go.
We're okay on chat so far.
Okay. So the other issue why teleinspections became so popular was COVID and the lack of access to communities. Everybody's now soul searching, saying, okay, well, how are we going to do these inspections? We can't get access. And, bingo, right? You can do it through videos. You can do it through photography. The other good thing about teleinspections as well, you can do for new construction. And one of the challenges for many communities, very seldom are renovations inspected. And by using teleinspections, we can start targeting renovations as well. So a big challenge to using teleinspections, overcoming stigmas, and that is, well, they're not as good as visual. They're not as good as visual surveys. And it really is the future, because when you have cities like Edmonton and Tucson, and there's a number of municipalities in the United States, they're all moving towards some type of teleinspection, remote inspections. And their arguments are that once COVID is finished, they're going to continue staying with some form of remote inspection services. It just makes it so much easier, they're saying.
Couple of comments, John.
Go ahead.
Okay, Vince indicated we were told we cannot use drones in our First Nations residential neighborhoods. And there's kind of a follow-up by Curtis Miracle, and it's talking about because their proximity to an airport, certainly I know there are restrictions for certain communities close to flight paths, or we'll call it, basically airports in general. So that can be, as far as drones are, the use of drones are concerned, I guess very limiting to some areas. Any
Good
comments?
question. Good question. My understanding on drones, you can use them if you get permission because it's federal regulated drones. And so I believe with permissions, you can use them for inspections because they use drones for pipe inspections. So I believe you can get permission to use them, but maybe the council themselves may be prohibiting the use of drones because then everybody be using. But I believe for inspection purposes with permission, it's being used. I know off reserve they're being used.
Yeah, I can comment a little bit off reserve. Certainly, home inspectors are using it in general. But again, I think as Vince and both Curtis have mentioned, there are certainly some limitations. I know home inspectors in general have to be licensed to use. If you're paid for an inspection, it's considered commercial. Therefore, it must be licensed. And certainly they have to go through I guess, training and regulatory review to make sure that they're following what the regulations require.
And that's by Transport Canada, I believe, regulates drones.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. So how does Teleinspections work? So in the manual that we have on our website, which actually probably be updated, I think next week, we had to add some more information. We've included stringent procedures in place. So for example, the contractor has to be familiar with the general inspection requirements. The Teleinspector assessment of the community of the contractor. So for example, we will look at, the community, how is the contractor hired, does the contractor have experience? We also will include legal documents. So for example, we would require a sign off from the council that we can use Teleinspections. We also require possibly a banned council resolution so that it would absolve the Teleinspector from any possible lawsuits for using the Teleinspections. We also include a photography checklist of how to receive the photographs, how to store them. We require all correspondence to be done in writing. And we also have how to store and put them up on the clouds. This is also quite good because many inspectors are using photographs and storing them onto electronic files. So this sort of complements some of the practices that are taking place now. So the other one is in terms of using videos, many communities would need at least a 4G capacity. I know in some of the communities aren't there. You can't use videos because the inspector's on the other side. So you probably could use photographs at the time. They're also done live. So if you're using a video, you have to arrange a time with the inspector so that he's actually at the other end. And under the video, the contractor walks around and he's zooming in and out and being instructed by the Teleinspector on how to use the video and what needs to be pointed to. What's also unique, what we established are construction risk factors. So the Teleinspector will do a construction risk assessment of the communities, and then he'll determine how the Teleinspection will be used. So there's 3 risk factors that we included. One's called a high risk, a medium risk, and a low risk construction factors. So let's look at these factors, and this determines whether or not Teleinspections can even be used. So a high risk construction factor. Well, these include some of the factors. Contractor hired without a tender. There's no procurement. History of poor housing construction practices in the community. The contractor's unknown. Is it a case of, he has a truck, he has a hammer, and he's related to the, chief and council, so all of a sudden he becomes the contractor. A contractor has no formal training. He hasn't taken any course on building science, nothing on Part 9. The housing manager or project manager are not available, or they're not being used, or the housing manager has no understanding about the construction process. Another important factor, the plans are not signed off or developed by a professional. And in these cases, if there's still an insistence of trying to use teleinspections, they say, okay, well, there might be a higher cost because of insurance. There might be higher cost because the teleinspector will have to come to the community maybe for 1 or 2 of the inspections. But because it's so high, it's probably a slim chance that teleinspections will be used at this stage. As you know, through our FNNBOA, we've been giving courses on procurement and how to hire contractors. So those all minimize the high risk. And if it's a high risk, the teleinspector is not going to take on the liability. Like, he's not going to inherit it, bad construction practices through inspections. Medium risk factor, somewhat of the same level, a little less. Contractors built homes, communities in the past, but doesn't have a strong reputation of building homes. Some have been okay, they're improving. He uses the sub-trades have some experience and training, but they're not familiar with building in First Nations communities. So what happens, as we know, contractors come from off reserve, on reserve, and are not familiar with the processes because there's no building permits. So they think because there's no building permits, they can skirt around some of the requirements. Communities built several homes in the past, but there were problems in those homes that were being built. There are housing project managers, but they're really not familiar with the construction processes. Previous inspections in the community, they revealed that there have been, some good homes built, but they've deteriorated over the years quickly, and that's because of bad construction. So in these medium risk factors, these are cases where, there might be additional risk assessment fees. Again, usually insurance for a teleinspection is already there, but there might have to be costs that they have to go on site. And again, insurance is always the challenge for a lot of the inspectors, especially if they're private. So our low risk construction factors, this is ultimately what you would want. Contractors hired through a tendering process. The tender included clear technical specifications for the construction of the home. The sub-trades, they're reputable, they have certifications, they have up-to-date training, education. They have some type of a building permit system or some sign-offs of their plans so that there's an oversight being done on that whole process. Councils passed bylaws that clearly state that they're the authority having jurisdiction, and most importantly, which building codes are being applicable. Is it the national building code or is it the provincial building code? There's housing and project managers exist, and they're aware and they've been involved in the process. So in these cases are probably a high opportunity that teleinspections will work. And it'd be easier for the inspector to basically use the use of videos or photography. So under the teleinspection phases, and again, it varies from coast to coast to coast or among the regions. Generally, under a teleinspection, you can possibly go for 11 inspections because they're done by video. So you can do the excavations, there's footing and foundations, there's mechanical, there's firewood stoves, but sometimes a wet would have to actually certify do those. And again, interior, exterior, there's a sewage backfill. So there's a number of phases that can be used under teleinspections, where if you're doing it by a visual survey, you may not be inclined to do as many of the inspections. I can't remember. I think in some might use a minimum of 6 inspection phases. So the teleinspection allows for more.
Before you go to the next slide there, John, and maybe a
Yeah.
couple of comments.
Okay.
Peter indicates, I think this was done as a desktop review of my pictures by an inspector. There was no contact with the inspector. So we see that the potential is it can and does happen. There was also a comment from Nina, speaking of plans not being signed off. Are the houses on reserves code compliant, or is that not the case everywhere?
Good question.
Okay, and the other one is, did you want to comment on that one, John?
Sure. So, and again, I'm open to others to comment. So theoretically, homes are supposed to be built in accordance to the National Building Code, the minimum standards, or the provincial, depending how the bylaws within a community have been drafted. The challenge that exists is many communities don't have bylaws to say we will follow the National Building Code. So it's assumed, because it's federal lands control, that the National Building Code sort of subsides, because a lot of the funding from ISC or CMHC in those comprehensive agreements talk about building to the National Building Code as a minimum standard. So, and this is the challenge, is are they being built to codes? On paper, they're supposed to be. But are they? That's, we have a number of inspectors on board. They can comment as well.
I think one of the other comments, kind of to throw in the mix, is really when you look at the drawings, are the construction drawings even meeting code? So I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying that in the province of Ontario, as an example, people that are doing even homes, unless it's your own house, they must be certified and be what's known as building code compliant. So in other words, they're taking courses and enough of code background to understand the drawings that they're producing meet code even before the building or the house is built.
And that's a very good question, because we run up against that all the time. We've been working on a northern technical guide for northern housing, in a similar situation as, suggesting how to meet the minimum building codes or standards or what or whatever those qualifications are. We're actually in the process of looking at a possible business case for FNNBOA, where we would actually work with communities to ensure that, their technical specifications or their blueprints are up to date. So we would have available to anybody to say, we're about to build a couple homes. Can you please review our technical specifications to make sure it's up to date? Can you please review our blueprints to make sure they're correct? Can you please, help out in that technical process? Because it is, for most people, unless you have that background, you not sure if it's a properly signed off or what are the technical specifications. So we're looking at creating an organization within FNNBOA that will have expertise for anybody who wants to call out or reach out to us. So we know that that's a huge challenge for a lot of the communities.
Lisa also raises a very good point. Certainly the drawings can be to code, but perhaps there are contractors out there that are not really able to understand how to read the drawing, so to speak. Certainly that presents another whole, we'll say, twist to the whole issue.
Well, it's a good question, because one of the points that we've been pushing as part of the procurement process, and again, this organization that we're looking at, FNNBOA, we're work with communities to make sure that they hire contractors that can, have the qualifications or understanding to read blueprints properly. Like it's funny, across the street from me, they're doing prefab walls, and so they build the walls on the ground, and then they get a big crane and they lift the walls. So they're lifting up the walls, and we notice this one window was really strange, but they lifted it up. And when I talked to the project manager and I said, what happened? He said, well, they had a blueprint, but they never put the diagram in terms of read north, south, east, or west. So when they did the walls, they flipped the plant upside down, and as a result, those windows were much lower than all the other windows. So I said, well, what did that cost the contractor to fix? And he said it cost him around $60,000, because they had to re-brick that portion of the wall, so, and put a new seal in. So that's because the plan was read upside down. So I guess it happens to the best of everybody. So pictures requirements. Well, before a Teleinspection can be used, the Teleinspector must have a copy of the blueprint in front of them. He has to see what the plans are and the location. Generally, we know the location through GPS settings, or through, being familiar with the community and the construction. So what we require, if you're using the photographs, date and time of the image, and you can stamp those on the pictures, location descriptions, lot location, GPS coordinates as possible. So before the picture's being taken, he would take a picture of the front of the house, around, so at least there's a clear indicating that this is in fact the lot that we're looking at. A brief descriptions on the image, if you can, front window, side window, front door, east, so at least when the inspector's looking at the print, he's comparing it to the blueprint so he can see what he's looking at exactly. And as I mentioned, the plan must be accompanied with all the images. So for example, here's a typical blueprint, and we can see where the inspector has identified a number of shots. So he says, okay, I want you to stand in for the first shot. Number one, I want you to stand in the dining room, and I want you to shoot it in that direction out towards, the kitchen. Number two, I want you to look and shoot out towards the stairs. Number three, I want you shooting from the, from that corner out. So you can see he's required a number of specific shots on the blueprint, and the contractor or project manager would have to try to provide those pictures. One of the other challenges that we have is through the Teleinspections, as we call it, the self-inspection checklist. So not only is the contractor providing pictures, he also has to do, a self-inspection. And a self-inspection is where the contractor basically goes around, similar to what the inspector will have done, and he has to follow a checklist, and on the checklist he has to provide the required photographs. So the purpose of the checklist is to confirm that all the drawings are meeting the phase of that inspection, and also show that those checklists under each of the inspections are being met. It's also assuming that the contractor has knowledge of the National Building Code and has knowledge of, you know, some of the standards and the windows and proper installation. So he's sort of reality, yes, he is inspecting his own work and he's doing it through photographs, but the photographs are being shown to the Teleinspector to confirm it. And we talk about where some of the items may not, all the items may not require a photograph. Some will. Again, it's up to the Teleinspector, say, for this phase and for these areas, I want specific photographs. And again, we'll look at a checklist here. So this is a checklist. And again, hopefully somebody can see it. If you have a bar on your left-hand side, you can open up the diagram a bit. So in this one, it's I'll just start. It's for the key inspection points for the foundation, and you can see it's, you know, check footing forms for proper location and placement. He has to do a checklist, and again, you have at the very top, you can see a CI, NA, and a PR. Hopefully you can see that. And the check, the C is for complete, incomplete, not applicable, or photograph required. So if we go to the first one, 1.1, so the checklist, and this is actually based on the building codes, check soil and groundwater conditions at bearing surface, ensure there's no water, loose fill, or organic material area in the excavation, soil bearing capacity is capable of support the design walls. And so it says here, the photograph must show the land that has been excavated, and there's a number, 1.1. So a photograph will be taken of that one, and it has to be numbered 1.1. So another one, for example, is check the minimum depth of the footings below the frost line. The photograph must show the depth of the footing. The photograph must be taken directly over the footing. So these are some of the examples that we would sort of seek for the photographs. So you can see the you know, the foundation, you can see the footings, the lands move back, photograph down. So it gives you a fair idea on the type of photographs. Now, these are the photographs. It could also be done by video. The Teleinspector can ask the contractor to walk around and to get a better depth of understanding what's happening on all four corners. And he can ask them to, you know, walk up and shoot into the construction area. So this is one for checking footings and foundations specifically. And again, you can see a couple of the requirements, check size, depth, designs of footings, and it says the photograph must be taken directly over each of the footings, or it can be taken from the corners of the structure to show two sides and one photograph, or each photograph must be clearly marked to show where each footing are on the photograph. And again, ensure a keyway is placed in the footings to lock the footings. And another one, he's requiring a picture 2.2, ensure column, pad size, and depth is accordance with permit drawings. So what type of pictures we'll be looking for? So here's an example, right? Show the footings, put a tape measure down, and to show us the thickness of the footing. So examples of other pictures for number 2, you can see the backfill, the wires and the footings that the locked. So again, all through photography, you can see the picture on the right, granules are down, the tires up. So when you look at that picture, it's, you know, if you're standing there, you can kick the soil, pick up the rocks, but through photograph, you're probably seeing most of what you would see if you were physically there. So just to another checklist, there's actually 11 checklists that we have developed. And again, they're all based upon those inspections. So for example, for the final occupancy, confirm that all prior deficiencies have been addressed, and you attach a photo to show that has been addressed. Yes, we fixed the vent. Yes, we fixed X. Yes, we fixed Y. And here's a picture of the deficiency being fixed. So some of the final comments. Again, not everybody would qualify for teleinspections. We argue through our processes that it's based on risk factors. We would encourage communities, right, to use proper procurement, hire proper contractors, make sure technical specifications are clearly articulated, plans are signed off. It's also the relationship between the contractor, the community, and the teleinspector. And that's really key, right? If there's not that relationship, I'm not sure if an inspector will can make himself available. So it's that relationship. It's also built on trust. And if there's any abuse of teleinspections, well, what happens is you pay. You have to find an inspector to go into the community. And given how busy construction is, good luck in trying to get an inspector, and you'll be paying probably top dollar for him to go in. And also then you get delays in the inspections. So we know that, teleinspections are being used informally. So inspectors are, at one part of, if inspectors got 2 or 3 communities and one's like 2-3 hours away, and they want to do a backfill and it's about to rain for the next week and they want to get the backfill through. Well, informally, they're using teleinspections, take pictures of it, and so the inspector is providing what type of shots, photographs, or videos they're requiring. So it is being used informally. But what I like about it is we can see now that municipalities are saying, hey, this is where it's going. They're doing for remote. So Edmonton's doing for final. The example with Tucson, they're doing it for installing cables and into the ground. And other communities have some type of remote inspection processes. Well, we're arguing under FNNBOA, you can arguably use them for any of the 11 inspections through some form of teleinspections. So I finished up because I did see a bunch of comments flash in there. So go ahead, Claude, because I cannot see anything from my screens.
Okay, I have it on my end here. There's a number of comments from Vince. Vince indicates if we look at CMHC Section 95, projects must have code compliance in attestations rather. So certainly code compliance certificates and certainly inspections are all a key part of good builds and making sure things are meeting code. He also goes on to say there must be a sign off by qualified individuals as approved by CMHC. In Saskatchewan, these are Class 1 building officials or engineers. So again, showing the importance of not only the inspection process, but again, I guess the level of expertise required in some instances here on signing off, let's say on a final occupancy before someone can really safely, I guess, go into the building or inhabit the building. Go ahead.
Yeah, but on the points that Vince raised, which is fabulous. So rather than, somebody physically doing the visual surveys, visual inspections, all those requirements, what we would argue you can do through photographs and videos, especially if a community has access to 4G. They can just get on the video, Vince can get it on the other end and basically guide the camera, and Vince can actually do the inspections that way. So
Yeah, and I think the other thing that enters into the whole picture is the capacity. Who's available to do this? And this is just another alternative that could be beneficial, certainly, and certainly applying mostly, not only mostly, but to remote communities. The other one I see here is from Lisa. Rarely do I see a set of drawings on site. I have to see it. Many times it's often not followed. And it's seen as a document that's sole purpose is to gain approval. That's all. Technically, drawings should be on site. I know off reserve. Technically, the permit must be posted on the building or on the site at least, and the drawings must be available. And certainly that applies as a reference guide for anyone that's inspecting the building, let alone those that are putting it together, constructing the building. But again, interesting point, Lisa, because I can see where it possibly can happen, that they're just simply, the drawings become, at the end of the day, carted away when the builder leaves. Peter,
Well,
go ahead.
and just to add to Claude's point, again, what we're hoping for through, training of project managers within the communities to make sure that those plans are available, and the training of, the contractors that they have to basically stay on site or be made available. So you would think that the inspector would be given a copy of the plans. I know when I had my extension done, they were actually kept in a box, and that he made a copy for me to keep in the house because he said they have to be around all the time. So
yeah, exactly. No, that's true. This is Bruno. I have 3-4 questions, if you don't mind.
go ahead.
Go ahead,
Mine
Bruno.
Mine are more specific to the video capture and that sort of thing. I guess I saw some of the pictures there. The fellow looks like he's holding an iPhone. So I guess I don't know all the cell phones, but with an iPhone, I guess you have FaceTime, and you can walk around with the camera on and speak at the same time. So are all cell phones able to do that, or is there only Apple cell phones that can actually have FaceTime type of app, I guess?
Most cell phones have different type of packages. So there's FaceTime, there's Google has one. So a number of, depending what you have on your phone, you can have similar. Yeah.
I was going to say you can also do it with your iPad. So if you happen to have like an Apple iPad, certainly you can video and basically also talk at the same time.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, in terms of compatibility, you're telling an Teleinspector is telling a contractor to take his cell phone. He says, "Well, I have an Apple, but the inspector has an Apple, but the contractor has a Samsung." Is there compatibility issues or any compatibility?
That's the Facebook app. If you have the app, you can view it on just about any smartphone.
Oh, I see. Okay, so
It depends on the quality too. I'd be
Okay.
concerned about transfer of data over the web. Sometimes it comes out really sketchy.
Is that right?
Yeah, no, that's right, Vinny.
Depends.
That's where you have to almost have 3 or 4G. So communities that are, near urban centers are probably will have the capacity. If you're, if you're out in an area that doesn't have that, videos won't work. It'd be grainy.
Okay, so I was just getting into the compatibility issue as to whether you have to say it up front with a contractor, whether he has to have an iPhone or if he has to have a Samsung, or if he has to have, video capability for those apps, basically.
Yeah, no, there's a number of different. So what I assume what happened is that the inspector in advance with the contractor say, well, let's use this program or let's use this app. So
Okay, I see. My second question is so as the Teleinspector is asking the contractor to take a picture or bring the video over to one corner, and let's say he focuses on the joist connection to the rim board, and he the specification calls for hangers, and there's no hangers, it's toe-nailed. Do they get into the deficiency right there and then, or do they just does the Teleinspector just take note of it and get into a report later saying you know it's all wrong, you got to replace everything with hangers, or do they actually talk about it then and there? I guess what's the expectation?
I would assume then and there, just saying, okay, well, where's your hangers? You need hangers. And then the inspector, I assume, will probably do more inquiry and say, well, let me see your other beams, and you're going to need hangers. So we have a deficiency. So it would be done then and there as part of the videos.
Okay.
I was just going to interject also that I think it gets back to an earlier point and about the drawings on site. Typically, drawings on site have been reviewed, at least hopefully have been reviewed, and there might be comments that have been added on, such as the issue about the joist hangers. So if those drawings are not available on site, again, it's sort of a question mark of what was the intent for the permission for the build to do it properly.
Right.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
For,
Yeah.
for example, we just actually had a case in one of the First Nations in Southern Ontario near Claude, where the lady was having problems getting inspectors, and she was concerned about the quality of the construction, and we were trying to help her out. And so we said to send Claude some pictures just to see, what she's talking about. Well, go ahead, Claude. What did we find from her pictures?
Well, saturated wood that had been left out probably for well over a month, mold growth on most of the wood. Certainly, the ladies that were having the house built certainly had concerns about, we'll call it the healthy house that they might be living in, or is it a case where maybe the builder's simply gone wrong installing wet wood? And so it was getting into some very questionable areas of, we'll say, probably indoor air quality control in the long run in this build.
And she had no hangers.
And no hangers.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's bad. So the other question I had, I know you mentioned that it was qualitative, but if the contractor's running the video and you see the main drain running across the basement and you're questioning the slope of that drain, I assume it's proper to expect them to confirm the slope and maybe pull out a level and show you that there is a slope on it or something. Is that not done on a video?
No. So under the video, the inspector will ask, can you put a level on that? I want a string level on it. I want to see the slope on it. So he would have to show both ends. So
Okay.
So yeah, the inspector will say, I want you to put a level. I want you to put a GFI plug tester in there. I want to see how this thing's functioning. I want to see the ends. Show me the connections, right? So yeah.
Okay, so that's proper. So the last question I had is on the statements about the contractor should have a working knowledge of National Building Code, Part 9 for houses and small buildings. Would there be, other than their declaration that or their attestation that they know the code, should there be some sort of, I don't want to say necessarily a test, but I guess somehow to verify that they actually do know Part 9 of the code, they know about the framing section, they know about the nailing schedule, they know about this and that. Is anything done to verify their knowledge of Part 9 of the building code for housing?
Well, good. That's a very good question. So theoretically, I'll say theoretically, if there is a proper procurement and as part of review of the contractors, that would be identified as part of the hire. And so if that information is not presented up front, then we just assume it's not there.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's what we've been trying to advocate through the procurement, is to ask for, certifications, training, up-to-date information that the contractor will have. The more the education, the higher the qualifications he would to get that contract. Again, theoretically. That's not, and we
Yeah.
know that's not the case.
Yeah, I just saw a comment on the chat saying, you know, the contractor will have a carpenter, and that carpenter, you know, if he's certified carpenter, he knows the code, right? But I
Yeah.
guess I'm thinking about the contractor knowing how it all comes together. You know, the foundations, the framing, and you know, the envelope and insulation, everything. I guess so. The contractor should have a working knowledge of the National Building Code, basically.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, there's been a lot of
Okay.
good comments and certainly a lot of good feedback we're getting in the chat that about consistency, certainly about the issue of is there really code compliance? Certainly about the issues of drawings and specs and the importance they play. I mentioned earlier about having the most up-to-date, we'll call it approved drawings on site. Certainly, I see that as being something that is important too. If we always just go by, we'll say the typical, we'll call it build drawings, they may not always be totally up to date. So again, that raises another level of potential concern. There are some comments about no permits, no drawings on site. Certainly, we kind of touched on that a little earlier. And certainly some of the actual build details. Do we get down to whether it's perfect to have the keyway right in the middle of the footing, or is it okay for it to be offset as long as it's within, we'll say, the width of the foundation wall that's going to be constructed? Any thoughts, Bruno, on that?
Technically, that key is for shear, right? For the pressure on the wall that it wants to push away from the footing. So wherever it is, it'll work in shear, but preferably it's not too close to an edge or that sort of thing. So it should be no more than, it should be within the middle third of the wall. You know, it could be
Thank
offset
you.
a little bit from the center, but it shouldn't go right to the edge or anything like that.
So in this particular case, you could ask for the contractor to put a ruler across to properly identify where the wires are, the bars, if you wanted to.
Exactly. Or even if there's rebar in the foundation, or even if it is required to have rebars.
Yeah. Yeah, so most of the conversation, again, the question is, can you do it through photography, through video, versus the actual physical or visual surveying? So all the same goals are being accomplished. It's just a question of how do you ensure compliance?
John, I think another point too is the cost factor. Let's face it, every time an inspector has to go on site, there is a cost involved to somebody. And certainly we know in remote communities, it's probably far in between and certainly very costly. You know, so I mean, I think that's the big advantage of the tele-inspection process is the fact that it allows for some form of review and inspection of construction to ensure reasonable compliance, even to a good building standard, certainly, hopefully, to a building code.
Yeah.
I also wanted to touch on the issue. You were talking about risk earlier, and just try and give some people examples about the cost of insurance. So as a former home inspector, and I hear from a lot of my colleagues at home inspectors about insurance has almost doubled, if not tripled, for home inspectors. So just to kind of give you a ballpark idea of insurance for home inspectors, ranges between $6,000 to $12,000. Well, that's a lot of money tied up in just insurance in case there's a mistake made, an error, or an omission. So if you think about that, that's about $1,000 a month to the average inspector out in the field. That's fairly significant costs unless you're doing a lot of inspections and making a lot of money to afford $12,000 a year. And by the way, that's if you can get the insurance.
Yeah, that's right.
the insurance itself for inspections is becoming a very tough nut to crack to get insurance in general.
Yeah, and so somebody, for example, like Curtis or Vince or the inspectors, you can use teleinspections within your own community, but I'm not sure if your insurance coverage will allow you to look at another community that you don't really understand, because your employees' insurance will cover you for your own community. It's the same thing. One of the issues where municipalities were coming across and doing inspections, for example, in BC, and then what they realized is that the municipal insurance for those inspectors weren't covering them in First Nations or off anything that's not a municipal related activity. So insurance is really a big issue. And I'm just looking at Peter's comment here. You need someone to inspect and to plan, inspect the plans and specs. And most definitely, one of the challenges that actually, or one of the positives is through the tele-inspection is, in advance, the inspector's going to have a copy of the plans. He's going to have a copy of the specs even before he sees, any of the videos. So he's probably going to look at it and say, "Uh-oh, we have problems, Houston, before we even launch." So, hopefully we get some of those problems addressed even before they get to the inspection. But I do agree with Peter. It's an issue, and hopefully this organization that we're thinking under FNNBOA will help a lot of communities say, okay, before you go out and hire your contractors, send us your plans, send us your specifications, and let us look at them for you. At no cost, by the way. Okay.
I think that covered it off quite well, John. Any closing comments? Other than we know on Thursday we have Gord back talking about HVAC, heating, ventilating, and air conditioning systems. There seems to be a lot of interest. I've counted well over 60 potential participants for that one. So again, a great speaker, and certainly a friend of the First Nations, and a lot of experience on First Nation and various communities.
Okay. And over the next week, we'll have an update on the teleinspections, and we'll be posting that, and we'll be sending it out to everybody as well. Matter of fact, I could probably even send out the draft. It's just getting the IT guy to help me set it up. So I'll send that to Claude, and as part of this presentation, we can send that out to everybody. So, all right. Thank you, everyone.
Sorry, John, what about the link to those videos for Edmonton and Tucson?
Yeah.
Yes. So as part of, I'll send those links out separately, right, Claude? We can send them out.
Yeah, I can send them out when we send the recording out. Certainly, I will include the links so you can take a peek at them.
Great.
All right. Excellent.
Great.
Thanks.
Excellent.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.